So even though it says the Articles of Confederation and U.S. Constitution, we're actually just focusing on the Articles of Confederation in this section, and this will be what is on your midterm. Um, so the Articles of Confederation is the United States' first form of government. It is written while the American Revolutionary War is going on. So they realize if we win, what kind of government do we want to have set up? So the people wanted a government in which they could elect representatives, because remember, their issue was about taxation without representation. So they wanted representatives to do work for them, to take care of their concerns. But they also didn't want a monarchy. They didn't want one person or one group of people telling them what to do. So they wanted a weak central government, and they wanted the states to actually be able to make most of the decisions. Um, the idea that the states are going to be a loose alliance of friends and they'll help each other out when need be. But other than that, the states take care of their own business. So the people wanted representatives in government, but they also wanted the states to take care of their own business. So the central government doesn't have much power. And that's just because they're kind of going completely opposite of what they had in England at the time, or from England at the time, and what they were breaking away from. So this is just the fact sheet right here. The Articles of Confederation, it was ratified in 1781. We do not sign the Peace Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris is not signed until 1783. It is implemented by the Second Continental Congress. Second Continental Congress, meaning this is the group that met the second time when, after the Battle of Lexington and Concord had actually already started the American Revolutionary War. And this was just a note that Thomas Jefferson was originally elected to be the first president, but he realizes that this quote-unquote presidential position is nothing but a meeting keeper, somebody who keeps people on task. It's not a really powerful position, and so he said no. So how is the Articles of Confederation set up? First of all, there's not a real president, and that's why I put that in quotation marks, because number one, the president isn't of the Articles of Confederation, is not the president we think of today. They can't declare war. They can't collect taxes. They can't implement health care. They can't do anything like that. It's just kind of somebody who runs the meeting for a year and makes sure things are running smoothly and takes vote and things like that. So there's no chief executive, president being of the chief executive branch. But they do so call, you can term it a president. So John Hanson was actually the first president under the Articles of Confederation. George Washington will be the first president under the U.S. Constitution. Each state will get one vote. So if there are 3 representatives from that state, you have to decide how those 3 representatives want to vote, and they all have to vote unanimously on yes or no. If you want to approve a law, you have to have 9 out of 13 states. That means you have to have the majority of states agree to pass this law. That doesn't happen. They don't pass any laws during the Articles of Confederation. The other thing is, if I wanted to make a change, if Congress wanted to make a change under the Articles of Confederation, they need 100%. They need all 13 states to approve this. So if they wanted to say all of a sudden that the Congress under the Articles of Confederation can collect taxes, they would have to get 100% approval before they can do that. Today, we literally look at 3/4. That's the number we're looking for. 3/4 of the states have to approve in order for an amendment to be passed. Congress is unicameral. Uni obviously means one. Cameral is House. So there's one branch of Congress, not 2 that we have today. Officials are elected every year. And the maximum you can hold that position as a congressman is 3 years. So we have congressmen who've been in there for 20, 30, 40 years. That wouldn't have happened in the Congress of the Articles of the Confederation. There's no real executive or judicial branch. Judicial is meaning judges. We don't have a Supreme Court. So what powers does the Congress have under the Articles of Confederation? And remember, when you think of Congress, you're thinking of this is a group of people that make laws. First of all, they can make war and peace, which is good because these are the guys who will actually make peace with Great Britain with the Treaty of Paris. You can conduct foreign affairs, so you can meet with allies and discuss how you're going to divvy things up. You can set up trade, things like that. You can make treaties, the Treaty of Paris being a good example. You can build a navy, raise an army with each state's help. That's actually not fully true because in order to build a navy or raise an army, you need money. They're not allowed to collect taxes, so they don't really have money to do that. So the idea is that if they want to build a navy, they have to ask each state of, hey, will you help us build a navy? Will you give us money to build a navy? And those states have the power to say, nope, we won't. So you may not have an army or navy, and they really don't. They are allowed to borrow money and issue currency, but once again, they can't tax to collect anything, to collect any money to do any of these things. So these are the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. They can't regulate trade between the states. So if Rhode Island wants to go to war against Connecticut about how much trade goods are costing between those states, they can't do anything. They cannot do anything. It just has to be the states dealing with it. They can't conscript or draft people into the army. So that means if there were to be a war or if Great Britain were to attack us again, we wouldn't have been able to get an army together because we couldn't force anybody to do that. They don't have the power to tax, which means they can't pay for an army anyways. So that's going to be an issue. One vote for each state despite its size. So there's a lot of people that live in Virginia, not as many that live in Rhode Island. It's just not fair. They couldn't enforce any laws because to enforce laws, you need some kind of military or sheriff or something like that. And of course, you don't have money to pay them, so you're not going to be able to enforce anything. They couldn't raise troops or money without states' permission. So once again, you have to go to South Carolina. Hey, will you guys lend us money? No? Oh, okay. And of course, could be seen as a positive or a negative, but the fact is that if you were in Congress, you could only serve for 3 years maximum. But you would have to be reelected every year. Some good things that happened. We've already talked about the Treaty of Paris, so they did do a good job with that. That was signed in 1783. That's under the Articles of Confederation. The other really big thing that happens is called the Land Ordinance of 1785. And this is where they start establishing the Northwest Territory. And I'm not talking about the Pacific Northwest. I'm not talking about Washington, Oregon. I'm talking about the Northwest in relation to Virginia and Pennsylvania, which are the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. So this territory was set up, and then the idea that we want to have more people settle this land. And the other interesting point is if you go down to number 3 here, it says money collected from the sale of land was used for education. So they would take a little percentage of whatever land was sold, and they would use that to establish a public school in these areas, in this territory. So the Northwest Ordinance. So we have the Land Ordinance, which says this territory up here, if you could look at this little map on the left, this is the new land. You can settle it, purchase it, we'll set up public schools. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 says this is how you can become a state. If you have 5,000 people living in the boundaries of Ohio, you can send a representative to Congress. Doesn't mean they can vote, just means that they can voice any concerns the people living in Ohio have. And keep in mind, this is adult free males, white males. Once you get 60,000 people who actually live in that area, and that can be women and children, or sorry, not children, but men and women, free men and women, you can write a constitution, become a state, and apply for statehood. Also, keep in mind, slavery is actually banned in this territory. So those were some of the weaknesses, or those things we just talked about were some good things that happened, and prior to that were some of the weaknesses. Now, here are some bad things that happened under the Articles of Confederation due to the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. First of all, Pennsylvania and Virginia are at war. They were having a border dispute. There is shots fired. Vermont, which becomes their 14th state, wants to become part of Canada. Why not? I guess, and there's nothing that the Congress could do about it. You had some states, let's just use Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania wants to start trading with Great Britain. We can't control that, so that would be a forbidden country. States print their own money, so every state would have their own money. So just imagine traveling from California to Nevada and having to go and exchange currency so that you could go shopping in Nevada. Also, Spain, if you look at New Orleans down here in the south of the map, they can actually control that area at this time, and they do not want the United States to use the Mississippi River, which is a huge waterway and highway of the time to trade goods. Barbary pirates are attacking. We can't help them out because we don't have a navy because we can't collect taxes to build a navy. So when the Barbary pirates attack our merchant ships, the merchant ships are on their own. The other fun thing is that they wanted, people were talking about setting up a state called the State of Franklin in honor of Benjamin Franklin, and they didn't need any money because they were going to pay their governor in whiskey and deerskins. The other problem is that under the Treaty of Paris in 1783, the British were supposed to remove themselves from all American territory. They actually don't. They still remain in the forts and the frontier. And once again, we don't have an army because we can't collect taxes, nor can we conscript. So they get to stay.